Yeah, as usual, I'm lagging behind the curve, aren't I? So today we're going to play around with Betaflight 4.6, and more specifically position hold and alt hold on this. It's an XI20, and just going to see if we can get it functioning. So stick with me. We're going to flash this, configure it, troubleshoot it, and get it working. Let's go. Okay, I have the little drone plugged in, and we're going to go through this in real time. I'm already running version 4.6, so I'm going to have to reflash this and add in the things that I need. So first off, one of the prereqs is you need to be using the web app, not the downloaded app, the installable app. This needs to be the web app. The beta version of 4.6 for Betaflight only works on the web app, so you need to be on here. If you do flash it using the installable app, you will need to then move to the web app, because the installed app will say it will not support. It does not support version 4.6. So once we're on, we are going to make sure we can actually see the drone in the web app. If you can't see it, click on I can't find my USB device and then just connect to it. It will then connect to it. For the firmware, I'm just going to go straight in, detect my board. I'm on the development release candidate here, so development 4.6.0 dev, that's the latest. And what I am going to add in down here, and this is important, we need altitude hold, GPS, magnetometers, pin IO, position hold, and VTX. Now most of these come populated already. The position hold and altitude hold is what you're going to have to add in. So I have done that in readiness for this. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got Crossfire selected because I'm using ELRS. I have the on-screen display protocol as digital. I don't have LEDs selected because I don't have any, but you do need altitude hold, GPS. Magnetometers I actually don't have, so I'm going to remove that out, and I'll show you a little trick around that later. Pin IO, position hold, and VTX. That's what we're going for. I'll load this firmware online. What this will also do is give us the opportunity to back up our file. So what we want to do is definitely back that up before we wipe this clean. I do already have a version 4.6 backup, but I'm going to take a fresh backup anyway as part of good practice. And it's really important to note that because I'm coming from 4.6 going to 4.6, I can use that backup to apply all of my information that I've already set on here. If you're coming from 4.5.2, don't blindly apply your backup. You'll have to go through the steps of getting your motors working and calibrating everything correctly, re-PID tuning if necessary as well. So now I can click on Flash Firmware, and it's going to prompt me for a backup, which I'm going to call it pre-hold 4.6. And we will save that as a backup. Once that's done, takes a little bit of time, puts it into DFU mode, flashes the firmware onto it, restarts it, and then we can reconnect. So that's flashing now. Now once the flashing is complete, I do have a battery here that we can use to power it up and check functions like the receiver and everything else. What I'm going to go ahead and do though, first of all, is connect into this and go to my presets and load the earlier pre-hold 4.6 perfect. That's about as good enough tune, or the best tune that I could get on it. I've called it perfect because that'll do. It's probably nowhere near that, but still. Now we're looking at this, we can start to configure stuff. So I'm going to power up my receiver. I'm going to plug a battery into this. It's going to start beeping at me. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to go to my receiver and make sure we've got some movement there, which we do. I'm going to go into my modes, and this is where the new modes appear. We have Alt Hold, and we should also have Position Hold. So these are now in here. I have assigned a switch for loiter and return to home. So we're gonna configure those in here, and also going to move my buzzer across. So first off, I'm going to move my buzzer, which is currently on this switch. I'm going to move the buzzer to that switch and then save it. And by the way, I'm doing this by setting it on, at the very top you have the auto button. So if I add a range here for altimeter hold, I can set it on auto, flick the switch I want to assign, and there you go, it clicks auxiliary 3. So we want alt hold on here, and we also want position hold. So again, add range, set to auto, click the button I want, and we're on there. And we've got GPS rescue further up here, so that's already on the correct switch. So the idea is in this 3-position switch we can have, on position 1 we have alt hold. I'll just narrow that down. So we have alt hold and position hold, and then in the 3rd position we have GPS rescue, so we can have a multi-mode switch set on that. So if I need it to come home, I can flick it all the way down. If I want it just to hold position, I can flick it once. And that's really all there is to it. My radio is already configured, and I will save that. Right, the next thing to do is to have a look at the GPS to make sure that we're all working here. Running U-blocks. We need to, I'm going to use Galileo. I'm in the UK, and Galileo does work for additional SATs. So we're going to have that. Set home point once. I'm going to have that unchecked because depending on where I take off from, I might want my home point somewhere different, but typically that will set it once from that battery pack. So if you take off from one location, it's always going to start and end there. In fact, since I never do that, let's select that. Ground assistance type, we're going to go to auto detect, and look, we can see we're already picking up some satellites even though we're indoors. Let's point that out the window because that will save a bit of time later. At this point we have to save and reboot, otherwise we will lose that information, so we'll do that. And the next thing to configure will be in failsafe. Now the reason why I've got the battery connected is before we nip into failsafe, I know when I'm flying that my in fact we're going to PID tuning first. Go to my rate profile. My hover is around about there-ish, 34% actual, so 37% on the throttle is 34% actual. Now that's important because if we take that value and look at the receiver value over here, we have a value of 1370, and I'm going to go 5 less than that value. Take that value, so 1365. Why is that important? Well, that's just below my hover, my default hover amount. So what it takes for this drone to stay in the air and hover at a single point is about 1370 on the throttle. Now on failsafe, I can set my throttle in here to 1375. We'll go one lower, always go a little bit lower. So my failback settings for throttle, its failback is to default to 1350. And then on the GPS rescue, we have 1350 in here. Now we were at 1370. I'm going to start at 1360, so value 10 less in here. My maximum throttle, I don't need it to be anywhere near 1700. So we will come down to 1600 or 1550 for now. Again, depending on how windy it's stuff. No, we'll stick to 1600 for now. Throttle minimum, 1100 is a bit low because it is quite a light drone. We'll just stick this at 1150 for now. So the idea is, I know that 1150 is enough to make it sink. I know that 1600 is enough to make it climb at a fair rate. I know 1360 is just below hover value. If it's underset, the drone will drop slowly and then bump back up. So it will start to fall down and then bump back up. Let me just take the battery off. So it will do this. It will fall down and then zip, zip. And if it's overset, if this throttle hover is set too high, we'll just get this kind of effect where it goes zip, 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 zip. It keeps, whenever it goes to return to hover, it will just already start climbing. I have to cut the motors and it will start bouncing around all over the place. So there will be some fine tuning involved in setting that up for sure. Let's look at the initial climbs. We'll go through all of these. So we are in the current altitude or maximum altitude. I would say stick with the maximum altitude if you're running in a heavily treed area or buildings or something. So this takes the highest altitude on your flight. If you hit that highest maximum altitude, it will then go 10 meters beyond that. So 10 meters higher than where you were, to make sure that it clears any trees or buildings or anything else. You have a current altitude as well, so if you want to fly around and just say, I want to go 10 meters above where I am currently, then you can do that. Or you can go to a fixed altitude of, say, 80 meters or something crazy, depending on what you want. For my particular scenario, I'm going to go for a maximum altitude and then just go 10 meters over. Why not? It's just going to go 10 meters. This is for GPS rescue. Okay, bear that in mind. We have, just as well, to make sure the fail-safe switch is set to stage 1. Stage 2, after 1.5 seconds, is going to kick in after signal loss. And then the throttle low delay in seconds is 10. So we've got that set. This, as it says here, just disarm the aircraft instead of executing the selected fail-safe procedure when the throttle was low for this amount of time. So if it's low for 10 seconds, it basically turns off. Here we can select what it does in stage 2, drop, land, or GPS rescue. I'm running GPS rescue, so I'm going to have that set. But it does use some of these values for the alt hold and position hold as well. The initial climb, so we've set that. Now the ascend rate in meters per second, it's only a little drone. I'm going to take that down to 3, gives me more control. The same with the return to ground speed. Maximum pitch angle is 45 degrees. I'm going to calm that down a bit. I'm not fussed about speed, I just want to get it back or to hold safely. If you are in relatively windy conditions, you may want to bump that up, but realistically at 35 degrees you're still going to fly pretty quick. The descent distance in meters, I'm going to set a little bit lower, and this gives you the final descent distance. The descent rate in meters per second is then going to go on this descent distance, so 1 meter a second at 15 meters is 15 seconds. Then we have the throttle settings, minimum distance to home in terms of meters, I've got mine set to 15, and minimum satellites 8. I would always suggest 8, it does take a while to get to 8, I'm going to stick it for 727 for now, for the sake of just trying to get it armed and up in the air, but we may see it waver a little bit. The more satellites the better. In fact, let's just pop it at 6 for this test. I would recommend 8 though. Allow arming without fix will allow you to arm the drone without having a satellite fix. So if you are really, really impatient, just have that set. Or if you're arming indoors to fly outdoors, you will need that. So I'm going to save those settings and reboot. And that should be it. That really should be all there is to it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open my window, put a pack in that and get ready to fly.
1 eternity later.
Nearly ready. Windows open. I've got a 650 high voltage battery ready to go. But we do need to do one last thing. That is setting the position hold without mag. Now, if you look at the documentation, it says here equals true. That's not a valid option in this. I think it's on or off. So if we just do a set position underscore hold underscore without underscore mag equals true, we're going to come back with an error. You know, it's beta software, so don't be upset about this. It's just the way it goes. Allowed values are on or off. We want to turn this on. Set position hold without mag, because we do not have a magnetometer, on, and that is done. So we'll go ahead and save that in the CLI. I will take another backup of my preset to make sure that everything is as is, like so. And I think we're ready to go. I will reset my accelerometer again. The trouble is my desk is not straight. That's definitely not straight. I think about there is the straightest I'm going to get it. So if we reset your accelerometer one way and then turn it 180, you'll see how far out you are in either direction. So we have there on the pitch 1.9 degrees. Now if I half that pitch and take that to 1 degree and then reset it, I need 2 arms for this, then we know that that's going to be more or less flat. So there are 0.7 degrees one way, we'll rotate it, and 1.3 the other way. Okay, so we're off the other way. Let's go reset one way, and then we'll come over here, turn it around. That's saying 1.9, so we'll go back to 1 degree, set it. So now we should have, 1 degree that way and 1 degree that way. It's half and half. My table's wonky. It'd be a lot easier if I had a straight table. If you don't know what I've done there, basically I've calibrated the gyro for one position on my desk, and I've turned it around the other way and seen how much out it is on both axes. And if it's basically 2 degrees out pointing this way, I've lifted it half that amount and then recalibrated it. And then when you spin it around, it will show as half, 1 degree out that way, 1 degree out that way. It's just because I have a wonky table. And that does matter when it comes to position hold. That 1 degree or 2 degree variance means you're going to have some amount of drift because it's working against what the GPS is saying. The GPS is saying this is where we should be, and the whole thing is just kind of drifting off. They've got to work together. Okay, that is it now. Let's power it up. Get it on the floor. You guys should be on board in just a moment. There's my mic. Hey, you should be on board now. No, you're not, because the throttle is there. You should be on board now. Okay, let's fly this in freestyle. We're in freestyle, we've got PID 1. Okay, everything looks good. Throttle is there. Let's just take off, go for a flight, and get some sat lock. Without crashing into the window again. Very professional. Okay, let's hover around here somewhere. In fact, yeah, let's just stick it down here. And we will see how many sats we get at this point. You can see we've got a 0 flashing at the moment, so I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. See how many satellites I pick up. Ideally, I want 6 or more. And then when we've got those sats, we'll cut back to this and see if position hold works. 5. Boring. 4. We lost one. 5. Boring. So there I can see 6. So I'm going to disarm, rearm, and it's going to set my home point. We've got a little house up top, which means we have a home point. And it's only with 6 satellites, so it's not the best lock, but it will do for now, for today's testing. So let's go up for a little flight. Let's just take it up and cool this poor little O3 unit down. We're going to hover over here, 15 odd meters away. Let's get to a reasonable point. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now let's click into the first mode, which is position hold. We're saying position hold failed. We're drifting backwards and upwards. Okay, so this could be because we need to fly in a direction because we have no magnetometer. So let's come over here. Go for a flight over here instead. And we'll get a little bit higher, and then we'll engage it here. Loiter is pulling me back somewhere. Not sure where it's pulling me. Are we holding? We are holding. Look at that. 86 meters. If we look at the GPS, we are holding in place. It's holding against the wind. We have position hold. There we are. And if I flick it to the next switch, which is return to home, we're going up. We're spinning around, and I'm going to cut it out there because I know return to home works. So there is obviously a bit of drift on the position hold, and that's kind of expected because we don't have that magnetometer. We're just going to engage it again here, see what happens. So we're loitering. It's trying to hold. Let's look at the GPS values. We've got a bit of pulsing, and that would suggest that we have our throttle there sat at 37.38. So it's a little bit higher due to the wind, but we have position hold. So what we need to do is now look at the settings for position hold and on the throttle. We're running a little bit higher there than where we were. So let's bring this in. We're at 3.5 volts anyway. This poor little 650 is going to start struggling. That was possibly the worst entry I've ever done, but we didn't crash. What's the way? 3.7 volts. We're okay. It is a high voltage one, so got to be a little bit more careful. And let's start to look at some of these values that we've got in there. So we've got position hold working. It held position. That was good. GPS rescue kicked in. It was going to do its thing. That was good. We had a little bit of bouncing. And I noticed the hover value was around 38%. So a little bit different to what we had configured. I'm going to plug back in another battery. You know, that one is dead. Put it over there. Let's plug in another battery and have a look at that hover value just to fine tune it a little bit. So 38%. Let's look in our, we'll go under PID tuning again, under rate profile. We'll look at where we were. 37% equals 34%. 37 equals 34. Now ideally, if you had a linear curve here, straight curve, you'd be able to do this a lot easier. I'm not sure whether it's actually 43%, which is 38% actual. If that's 50%, is 43% actual. I'm more inclined to say that it was 38% actual. So let's go for the smaller number, 37%. And we'll take that into the receiver, look at the value in the receiver. The throttle is at 1,400 and we'll call that 10. 1410. So we'll go back into our failsafe and we'll configure this for 14 there. And we'll go 1410 in here, 1410. So we've still got 200. Well, we'll bump this up a little bit for the throttle maximum, and the minimum I'll bump this up to 1200. Save and reboot. Okay, and there we have it. That should hopefully get rid of some of our pulsing. Time to get a new battery. Let me do that now. $850 LiPo this time. Doesn't make any difference to any of this stuff. It might make a slight difference to the hover value because this is ever so slightly heavier than the 650. But if anything, if it undershoots a little bit, that's okay. Overshoot is probably worse. Just clean your screen. And take it back up. Wait for it to connect. There we are. Let's try not to crash this time. Not that we crashed last time, but we came close. Right, let's arm it. You should be on board now. That's better. Let's go over here and get some kind of a position lock. So there we have 6 satellites already. We'll stick this down on the ground. We will now rearm it in its home spot without throttle, Johnny. There you are, we're armed. We're at 6 satellites, so we have a home lock because we can see the house up top, and we're at 0 meters to home position. So let's go for another flight and try position hold again. Let's pop over here again, over the field, where it's nice and safe, and we'll enable it here. Loiter. Now we're going up. We're struggling, it's shaking. It's at 29% throttle there. And we're bopping around. I'm going to take control because I feel that we're kind of going down in the world. And I'm not sure why. So let's try here. Yeah, it's better with 7 satellites. Now we've picked up a satellite, it's able to determine its height a lot easier. And we can see there it's really aiming into the wind. 33% throttle to keep things steady. Now if I adjust the throttle, we can go up and down. If I put the stick to 0 all the way down at the bottom, this should hover and it should stay in place. It's automatic. Whereas if I use the throttle up and down, it will... well, at least it should give me an up and down. Alright, so there we go. Let's stick that on 0 throttle. You can hear it pulsing. Yeah. So it's doing some interesting pulsing. I think we need to reset the hover value again. I don't think it's 100% correct. So let's come over here and see what it takes to actually hover. Yeah, it's much less than what we had earlier. 36, 35. So there we go. I think with the batteries, maybe it does make a difference. Let's bring this in again, and we'll retrim the throttle one last time. See if I can do this without crashing. Excellent result. I'll leave the battery plugged in for a sec, and we'll check where that hover value is again on this battery. It could well be because I've changed the battery, and that'd be an interesting point, because of course even the slight difference in weight means quite a big difference in throttle value, even though it's gone down. I suspect what that is, and this is where I probably should have read the documentation, but playing with the throttle with position hold still means I can go up and down in place, so increase my altitude or decrease it. With the throttle at 0, it goes into the altitude hold, and that's probably the modes there. So before, when I thought I was setting my throttle to where it was holding altitude, it wasn't. It's just because that's where I had my throttle set, which was why we were climbing. It's all interesting stuff, isn't it? Let's go, before this overheats, into the PID tuning, into rate profile settings, and we were at 33% on the throttle for the hover in automatic, or at least when we were outside in the garden there, it was about 33%. So we will now look at the receiver tab and see what the values in here. That's 1350 again. So 1350. You know what? We're just going to revert back to that 1350 configuration under the failsafe, which is where we were before. 1350, and we will set that back at 1350 as well. We will leave the throttle maximum where it is, and we'll decrease throttle minimum. We want to be able to have this to sink down. 1150 should be fine. So this is how you can tune the balance of throttle hover, and I think that's really the biggest piece to take away from this is altitude hold and position hold clearly works very well. There are definitely different modes on the altitude hold. If you go up on your stick, it's going to climb. If you come down on your stick, it is going to drop. It's only when you have your stick at 0 is it going to use altitude hold and do that for you, and that then relies on the throttle setting in your failsafe area down here for throttle hover. And again, if you're getting pulsing or if you've got it wildly wrong, it's going to thrash about, as we saw there. It was bouncing around all over the shop. But I would call that a success. We had position hold working. It was relatively stable. There's definitely some fine tuning I could do on the throttle hover. We know that GPS rescue works absolutely fine. I did that in an earlier video. If you haven't seen that, I will link that at the end. It's from a couple of years ago now. Crikey. But all in all, really straightforward and easy to do. And now I'm on the 4.6 firmware as well, and I've used all of my tuning on this as well. So I've gone through the PID toolbox as I did before. So now my PIDs they're really not that far from stock, in all honesty. A few tweaks. But yeah, it's flying beautifully. Anyway, I hope you found that very useful. Go out and play with your drones, update your firmware, but beware, this is beta. This is not a release candidate or anything even at that point. This is pre-release. It could have bad effects. It could do bad things. So just bear that in mind. But go out and play with it if you're curious. It clearly works. I'm going to have a bit of fun with this and see if I can polish up on it. I'm by no means an expert, and I haven't done this before. This genuinely is the first time I've run through this, and everything seems to make sense and it works. What a revelation. So there you are. Have fun, fly safe, be happy, and I'll catch you again soon. Ta-da!